Yo, what is good, everybody? It is your boy, Golden Falls, Golden What If, whatever you want to call me, or Golden What Ifs, whatever you want to call me. And I am back. This is part 3 of What If Deku Was Like Akaza. And as always, if you enjoy, please show some love. Leave a like, leave a sub, leave a comment down below. All that good stuff. And yeah, I don't really have that much else to say. I'm not sure how many parts this series will end up being. I would like to get it done within this week of Monday through Friday, so we'll see if that actually happens or not. But ideally, if I can get it done within that time period, I definitely would like to get it done during that time period. But now, like I said, don't got much else, so I want to just get right into the what if. Let's get it. Izuku Midoriya has now finally started his internship. And his internship is going to be with the one and only Mirako. Now, Mirako is something interesting because initially Izuku didn't really know much about her, and frankly, she's not like any other female you could possibly think of. Now, normally he's very protective. You know, he doesn't really like the idea of women getting injured and getting hurt, and he's very protective and proper over women. Now, this is all true, but he also now has run into a woman that is a little bit interesting, you could say. And it's not interesting, or not a bad interesting or anything like that, but she is interesting in the way of, well, she's very, very, very powerful. So much so that she's kind of frightening. Just a little bit frightening. Now, Izuku would see this as pretty interesting overall, but would also utilize this time with Mirako and the training with Mirako as a way to sharpen his own skills. And that's exactly what he does. He sharpens his own skills, and he finds ways to benefit himself. He continues to get stronger, and all of the above. Now, the training with Mirako has really elevated his fight style and has really shown him the type of fight style that he really could approach things with. And he continues to just get more and more powerful through this brand new fight style. And it's a pretty interesting one. I mean, this one that he now utilizes is more of a athletic one, more of a one that can use mostly kicks and stuff like that. And he continues to utilize it for the benefit of obviously himself. And also, just training with Mirako is a totally different feeling. I mean, he can feel his body getting a lot more durable as well, because at the end of the day, she hits pretty damn hard. I mean, it's no joke, the punishment that he has to take when fighting and actually training with Mirako. Now, this would lead them to actually going off on a bit of an excursion, you could say, and they decide to head off to Hosu City. Now, what they didn't know was that Hosu City was going to be riddled, and I'm saying riddled with, well, villains. Now, this is kind of an awkward occurrence because they thought it would be a simple incursion, kind of like a simple thing to actually occur. And they thought, yeah, there might be a couple villains here and there, but nothing crazy, right? There's no way that there was going to be tons and tons of villains, but they were wrong. There was going to be Nomus, there was going to be villains, there was going to be a hero killer, all of these things. And he has to deal with them all, including Mirako. And yes, having Mirako here, well, it makes it a little bit easier. But it's still difficult, right? It's still a lot to deal with overall. And this all was just really made for a distraction to actually speak with Izuku. Now, this may sound odd, but Shigaraki sees Izuku as someone who might be able to actually become and shift over into villainy, but you never know, right? Like, this was a good idea for Shigaraki as long as he, doesn't die, because that would absolutely suck. Because if he just runs into an issue and ends up, croaking, that would not be beneficial. But he does finally get to meet up with Izuku Midoriya, and he speaks with him, offering him so many different things, offering him this, offering him that, offering him power, and also just flat out anything he ever wanted. And Izuku would eventually get the idea of kind of siding with them, but there's a reason for that. In his own mind, he wants to make it or portray that he is kind of on the side of Shigaraki, or at least some sort of sided on Shigaraki. Like, he's somewhat on their side, or at least considering joining their side. So once he starts kind of convincing Shigaraki of this, Mirko would approach and actually immediately start a fight with Shigaraki. Now, this would kind of, put them in an awkward position, because Izuku had a plan that he wanted to kind of set up Shigaraki for, but unfortunately Mirko showed up at kind of not the best time in the world, but still, it's not horrible. So he decides to try to drop hints toward Mirko of what he's trying to do, and luckily enough, he's able to somewhat do this. It's not perfect, but throughout this fight and throughout this kind of giant facade that they're putting up, he's basically able to tell Mirko exactly what he wants to do and the seeds that he's planted within Shigaraki's mind, leading to actually him telling Mirko to put him down, like drop him with like a massive kick to the face and knock him out, quote unquote, in which Mirko would land this kick, knocking Izuku out, quote unquote, but not actually knocking him out, and she would immediately dash towards Shigaraki, but a portal would open up and take him away. Immediately, Mirko would pick him up, or pick Akaza, or this version of Deku, up, and she would jump away. And immediately, Izuku would wake up and would tell her that now the seeds have been planted, as if he's going to flip sides. Mirko would kind of smirk and laugh at this, saying that he's smarter than she actually thought, but it was a very risky thing to do. But Izuku says that he could tell that this Shigaraki guy, can truly be a massive issue in the near future if they're not careful. In which Mirko asks, how does he know that? And he tells her that he can just sense things. He can tell by kind of like, not necessarily the aura of somebody, but just the type of kind of feeling that they give off to an extent. And he could tell that Shigaraki may become a massive issue, but so he wants a way, and also a way to basically assert himself within that, if he can find a way to stop him entirely. And as his power and his strength and speed continues to grow, an insider, or basically a way to get inside of the League of Villains, is something that he really, really wants. And maybe it would lead them astray a little bit, thinking that they now have someone like Izuku who is considering going into basically villainy. Now, this just planted a seed, though. This wasn't like a full-on turn or anything like that. They're still going to make their attempts to try and grab or take Izuku, but this would only benefit Izuku heavily in the long run. But also, they are looking at someone else, Katsuki Bakugo, and trying to get him to turn as well, seeing that he has some anger problems, and definitely some aspects of him are very villainous. They think that they might be able to flip him to a different side. But now, this would lead to Izuku and all the other UA students being forced to actually cut short their internships, and they would have to head back to UA High School. Now, when they head back to UA High School, this is where things kind of shift back more into the school-orientated or school aspect of everything, right? Immediately, they would go into kind of this study mode where they would be getting ready for the final exams. And the final exams would be pretty basic. You have your written and you have your practical. Just like you had the UA entrance exam, it's very similar to that specifically. Now, this would lead to more or less Izuku studying as hard as he possibly can and doing not the practical, but the written portion of the exam. And then obviously this would eventually lead them down the pathway of the practical. But the practical is not going to be robots. The practical is not going to be your normal, your normal thing that most people thought it was going to be. And it's actually going to be something a little bit different. It's going to be students versus teachers. Now, Izuku is curious about basically who he's going to be going against, But before he could even really think about that, he is called in with Aizawa and many others to talk about some things that he did while on the internship. It seems like Mirako actually told Yue about this on the off chance that Izuku was lying, but Izuku makes it very clear that if they feel that he's, turned or something like that, I mean, feel free to do a full investigation, but he did that with full certainty to make sure he can set up or actually put the League of Villains in a bad spot. And from the very beginning, he knew that they were interested in him, especially with some of the tendencies that he was portraying. So they really thought that, oh, well, maybe they can flip him, maybe they can turn him. So of course that's what they were thinking, and of course that's kind of like the idea that they thought would be, okay, and they would be able to do that. But he makes it very clear that he has no intention of flipping, that he has no intention of doing any of those things, that he's not going to flip sides or anything like that, but just know that there is a chance for them to truly shut down this whole organization if they utilize him, in which they're all kind of surprised by the fact that he's really thought this far ahead. I mean, this is kind of a crazy way to approach things, but still Izuku shrugs it off and says, like, this is something that they really should be thinking about, because you never know, right? You never know when you're going to be given an opportunity to shut down something like this, in which obviously they would kind of go along with what Izuku and also what they're flat out talking about in general. So they would go on to do, your normal practical exam, and obviously that practical exam would be kind of along the lines of more or less your heroes or your adult heroes versus your students. Now this would lead to Izuku and also Bakugo being teamed up. Now Bakugo doesn't like the idea of teaming up with Izuku, like not even close, like he does not like it at all. But of course Izuku makes it very, very clear that he is trying to just pass the exam, and that's it. They don't gotta get along, they don't gotta team up properly, whatever. He just wants to pass the exam, and it's that simple. In which at least they could agree on that, leading to Bakugo and Izuku taking on All Might. Now, flat out, Bakugo does not stand a chance against someone like All Might. But Izuku, the one that has basically been climbing in strength this entire time and continues to get stronger and stronger, truly has a chance against All Might, especially with his massive amount of regeneration. When he takes on All Might, it's a pretty crazy fight. He takes on All Might straight up right in front of him, just going blow for blow, and it seems like Izuku's not even really taking damage, but All Might slowly but surely is. It seems as if Izuku's stamina is also holding up drastically as well, almost as if he has infinite stamina. And this is kind of a crazy thing, and many others are watching this and they're completely taken back by this. Like, how is this even possible? How is he able to keep up with All Might the way he's keeping up with All Might? Like, this makes no sense. Like, this shouldn't be something that can actually be happening. But of course, well, it is happening. And Izuku is showing why his level of strength is continuously growing and growing and growing. And he's able to just take on All Might one-on-one, while Bakugo plays more of a support role. And not gonna lie, let's just say this, Bakugo is not too happy about the idea of playing more of a support role, but they still are able to actually take down All Might enough to the point where they're able to escape through the gates. But honestly, Izuku could have kept fighting and actually won this fight right here. And to be honest, there was part of him that was itching, like legitimately itching to continue this fight. Part of him really wanted to continue fighting, but it was as if something in the back of his mind, like, another thing was kind of telling him, okay, like, it's time to chill out, time to not do this anymore, which, is fair, because, you gotta really be careful with how much you fight and also how much damage you're going to take. But he honestly thought that he could have taken down All Might here, and maybe in this reality, he probably could have. There's a good chance that he actually could have taken down All Might, but we didn't really get to see the finale of that fight, so I guess we just don't know for now. Now, this would lead to Izuku more or less passing the exam, and that also includes Bakugo. They would both pass the exam very easily, and it would be pretty just flat out impressive how well they were able to do, right? Everyone's like, wow, I mean, they took on literally the #1 hero and they did that good. Like, that seems kind of insane. Like, how are they able to do such a thing? Like, how are they able to actually do that? Which is kind of wild when you think about it. But at the same time, it seems as if they're both prepared to kind of go on to the very next thing, which would obviously be the forest training camp. Now, the forest training camp is pretty much gonna go very, very similar to normal, which the forest training camp is just a way for them to get stronger, a way for them to, train harder, in which this allows Izuku to actually train his sunlight deficiency or his weakness to sunlight, which is something that he's really excited to do because, yes, it is a bit of a pain because, let's be honest, like, it's gonna hurt like hell, but at the same time, it's going to benefit him massively. The fact that he's able to actually kind of level up in this way, and the fact that he's going to be able to more or less kind of get to the point where sunlight no longer affects him the way that it kind of would have initially, is something that's going to benefit him massively in the near future. And like I said, the forest training camp would go very similar, if not exactly the same, and that includes villains showing up to actually fight. But this time around, they're not here for just, Bakugo. They are actually here for Izuku as well. At the end of the day, they know that Izuku's strength is absolutely insane. They know that basically they could get so much out of having Izuku and Bakugo, because Bakugo also kind of has this weird, anger to him and stuff like that. So they honestly believe that they could bring Bakugo over to that darker side of him and actually utilize him in the near future. Now, will that actually happen? Probably not. But Izuku and Bakugo are the targets of this invasion, and quickly they would actually realize that that would be the case. But before that, well, let's just say Mr. Izuku Midoriya absolutely puts the beating on one basically muscle head, in which would be Muscular, and he puts the beating on Muscular. He does serious damage to Muscular, and he does some serious work in terms of actually defeating him. And on top of that, he makes sure that Muscular knows and understands that he's never going to be doing this ever again, because, I mean, at the end of the day, he was trying to literally kill a child. I mean, he was trying to hurt a child extremely bad, and this was a no for Izuku, obviously. And Izuku makes sure that this guy gets the beating he deserves, and after defeating him, of course, he's able to kind of go on to basically doing the very next thing, which would be finding where Bakugo currently is. Now, they're not 100% sure where Bakugo currently is, because Bakugo could be kind of anywhere at this point, but at the same time, they're able to eventually find Bakugo, and the League of Villains finds Bakugo, but also the League of Villains would be kind of in the perfect place at the right time to actually find Izuku. Now, you got to keep in mind, the League of Villains also kind of minorly believes that Izuku wants to flip sides to a large extent, and Izuku wants this to be the case 1000%, or at least wants them to think this to be the case 1000%. So he decides that he's going to basically bait them in. Yes, they're here to basically capture Bakugo. But as they're capturing Bakugo, as they're getting Bakugo and bringing him in and dragging him through the portal, Izuku would dive in as well, following Bakugo or following right behind him. Now, everyone is ready to actually fight Izuku in terms of the League of Villains, but then when Izuku's not fighting or anything and they just captured Bakugo, they truly believe that he is on their side. That's until they realize very quickly that that's really not the case. He awaits Bakugo basically getting ready for his kind of way of getting out. So Bakugo would stand there or be locked up and then eventually let free, and he would spark an explosion at Shigaraki's face and would kind of stream explosions on everyone else as well. This would lead to basically Izuku being right there to stop Bakugo if need be, in which Izuku would stand there as if like, oh yeah, like I'm going to stop him. I'm going to, you know, basically shut this down right now. And everybody in the League of Villains would think, oh, Izuku's going to help us. But quickly, that's not the case. Izuku would swiftly knock out the rest of the villains, including someone like Shigaraki. And Bakugo would smirk, saying that he already knew that the damn nerd, there was no way he would have turned sides. I mean, it was ridiculous to even think that that was the case. But this might get him in some hot water pretty soon. In which Izuku does agree that this may get him in some hot water, pretending to be a villain, but that's kind of not their concern. Izuku and Bakugo would blow open the building, or at least the side of the wall, to drag all the villains out, signaling for the other heroes. This would lead to the capture of basically all of the villains in the League of Villains outside of, well, the one and only All For One. And as kind of like a pseudo final gambit, All For One knows that he needs to basically save Shigaraki or basically get him out of there. So he tries to do that with a portal, but let's be honest, well, Akaza, or this version of Izuku, is ready for it. I mean, so fast to the point where he can stop this Shigaraki from being dragged into a portal, forcing the one and only All For One to show his face, to actually leading him to fighting Bakugo and also Izuku Midoriya. But of course, with him showing his face, well, with All For One comes All Might himself. So now All Might being there with no League of Villains no longer a threat, and only there being an All For One, this is something that is immensely different now. This is something that could change things forever. Because at the end of the day, with League of Villains captured and there only being All For One, well, now there's a fight between All Might, Akaza, or All Might Izuku, or this version of Izuku being like Akaza, and Bakugo versus All For One. And this fight is one that heavily favors the heroes, in a fight that could actually stop so many things from happening in this world, and well, more or less happening within Japan. But this fight is the true end of possibly All For One and the League of Villains themselves. With only All For One left, and with Shigaraki's kind of future in the balance, it seems as if All Might Izuku and also Bakugo are the last people ready and standing to take him down. But what will happen to All For One? How will the capture of All For One go? And what's going to happen to Japan after all of this is said and done? Well, you're going to have to find out in part 4 of What If Deku Was Like Akaza, where we're going to basically watch as All For One is going to be fought by 3 different super powered beings, being that of both All Might and of course Izuku Midoriya, and also Bakugo. But of course, like I said, that's going to have to wait for the next part. And if you enjoyed this part, make sure to show some love, leave a like, leave a sub, leave a comment down below, all that good stuff. And I want to say this before this ends. Like I said, my whole goal was to do Monday through Friday. Still sticking to that, even though some of these videos are coming out a little bit later than I would like them to come out. But I still want to stick to that. So if you're enjoying the videos, please show some love. And yeah, I do have full intention of doing different what ifs. I think this might be the last quote-unquote Deku what if that I do for a little bit. I think I kind of want to transition and do a little bit more some other stuff. I haven't fully decided what I'm going to do just yet. Maybe I'll do another Demon Slayer one. Maybe I'll do Maybe I'll do a Naofumi one, right? I don't know if I'll do all 3 seasons, just because I'm gonna be honest. The seasons were not very good. Like season 2 and season 3 weren't very good. Season 1's really good, but we'll see what I end up doing. I might end up doing all 3 seasons of Shield Hero, but I just might do it in my own way, in a way that, like, you know, I'll actually enjoy. So expect this to be the last Deku What If for a little bit. Don't worry, they're not going away forever, but just for a little bit. And yeah, I mean, once this series is over, I'll come up with another idea. And yeah, that's all I really got to say. Hope you all enjoyed the video, and I hope you guys have an amazing day. Later.